Hello, and welcome to the second lesson in the first module. In this lesson, you are going to learn how to set your life after journalism launch goal. So let's get into it. First, let's remember why you're here. You are here to learn how to create and launch your life after journalism in 6 weeks so that with clarity and confidence, you can find your purpose off deadline and be ready for the adventure of a new career. Now, I just want to acknowledge something, that you are out of your comfort zone. You are here doing something new, trying something new in an effort to get to a new result. So I just want to commend you for that, because you are really trying some new things. Like our Facebook group, I have you posting in there, sharing what you're doing, sharing the results as you go along. It's not perfect, but it is what you are coming up with. I had you fill out a questionnaire. I'm talking about use these hashtags, the gray side, traffic light. I know it's all new, but trust me, it is all part of the learning when it comes to life after journalism, because this out of your comfort zone feeling, once you set your goal and then actually achieve your goal, you will continue to be out of your comfort zone, because the comfort zone is what you know, but you don't want to be in your comfort zone anymore. You want something new. So just remember that where you are exactly right now is exactly where you want to be, and you are doing the work, which is great. So this is probably familiar to you if you came to the class through one of my master classes, and that is the number one culture gap that you run into when you are creating and launching your life after journalism. And here is the gap. You are going from being an observer to being a player. Now, when you are an observer, which is what I'm saying journalists are, journalists do a lot of work. And I mean, observers do work when you go to a game. You have to find your seat, have your ticket, cheer on the team, go to the concession stand, go to the bathroom. There's lots of activities involved in being the observer. But at the end of the day, you are watching people play the game. Unlike my man on the right, who's got his ball in his hand, he's running down the court, he's trying to figure out whether he should dribble or pass or shoot. He is a player. He is in the game, and the stakes are resting on him. So what I'm saying to you now is that you are now getting off the sidelines, going from being an observer to now being in the game. You are in the game, playing the game, setting goals, working to achieve those goals. So now it's time to take action. And what does taking action mean when it comes to creating and launching a life after journalism? So we've got our observer actions on the left, right? Okay, you're reading the posts in our Facebook group, but the player writes Facebook posts and they comment on Facebook posts. The observer does the assignments the day of the deadline, like the day of the Q&A call, or maybe not at all. The player says, you know what, I'm going to block time on my calendar and use that time to not only do the exercises, but also post to Facebook. And the observer says, let me think about that questionnaire. Let me maybe get started on that later. The player is like, all right, I am going to knock that questionnaire out the park. What's next? And the observer is looking at things like the sentence that where you are talking about the gray side, embracing the gray side. And then the player says, you know what, I not only am going to complete my sentence about the gray side, I am going to take that sentence and make it a daily calendar reminder. When every day at 4 o'clock, pop, there we go. There's my gray side sentence. I'm going to post it up on my wall. I'm going to say it every morning after I wake up, every night when I go to bed, but I am putting this in action. A player takes action. A player knows that they have a voice and that they use it. And a player sets goals. And when you take action, setting goals, when you're in motion and in movement, That creates momentum. And momentum is really important because when you signed up, you probably just thought of yourself as Jennifer Doe, journalist. That's all I am. That's all I know how to do. And now going forward, you are going to create something new, and it has to come from you. You are the one, you look in the mirror, you are the one who actually knows what it is you want to do and where you want to go. Even if it may not seem like it, I promise you that you are the one who knows best. So once again, I really commend you for taking those actions, jumping into our Facebook group, completing the questionnaire, continuing to use the hashtags that come up in exercises. Keep it up. Trust the process. Remember, that's one of our core values from the welcome lesson. Trust the process. So now we are going to start that process by setting your life after journalism launch goal. So let's get into it. Here's what you'll learn. You are going to learn how to set your goal, and you are going to figure out the questions that you need to answer to actually help you figure out what that goal is. And then you actually are going to write down your goal and understand how you are going to do that, what goes into creating it. I promise you, you will be able to do all of these things. So why is this even important? I love to ask why. Why is important? Your launch goal is your North Star. As I wanted to do it in a really big font so that you didn't forget. Your launch goal is everything. That tells you where you are going and what is the most important thing to you. A launch goal makes something possible. You are saying to yourself and to others, I am setting this launch goal so I can, X, Y, Z, A, B, C. The so I can part is super important, and we are going to talk some more about it. But the launch goal makes something possible. It's not just, I want to learn French. I want to learn French so I can spend the summer in Paris next year. That's what the so I can does when it comes to a launch goal. So a launch goal has 4 components. The first is, what are you doing? Very simple, declarative. I am creating a life after journalism. Subject, verb, object, simple. The second component is so you can. That was the example I was saying, I want to learn French so I can, or I am learning French so I can. And then you've got benefit 1, benefit 2, benefit 3, maybe even benefit 4 or 5. I am learning French so I can spend the summer in Paris and maybe meet a French boyfriend. There you go. And the deadline, right? You have to put some time on it. Otherwise, you could be learning French forever. I want to learn French so I can travel to Paris next summer and meet a French boyfriend. I want to study French for 6 months. There you go. So those are the 4 components of a launch goal. So let's get into some examples. I talked about the French example, but let's talk about it in terms of life after journalism. What are you doing? Simple, declarative. I am learning how to create and launch a life after journalism. You can even edit that shorter. I am creating and launching a life after journalism. Second part, so I can. I am creating and launching a life after journalism so I can. So I can. Now this example is my example. I am creating and launching a life after journalism so I can, 1, have the freedom to work on behalf of issues that I care about, something I couldn't do in the newsroom. 2, integrate my family and my whole self into the work I'm doing. Again, which I couldn't do in the newsroom. I had to keep my family and my work sometimes separate because sometimes the work was scary or disturbing, or I worked on weekends. 3, so I can be able to pursue opportunities and expand my skills on the timetable that I want. Hey, I want to learn how to use Twitter. I want to do other social media. I don't have to wait for training in my newsroom. I can learn those things on my own. And then so I can make an impact beyond the newsroom by doing my part to help people and organizations tell their story with purpose, so that I can work with clients as I do now and say, what is it that you are trying to communicate? Let me help you communicate that better. And that's having an impact, because if people know how to tell their story with purpose, then that does benefit the listeners, and it benefits the world if people understand better how they can help. So the final component is that deadline, right? My launch date is January 1st, 2019. And I've met that launch date because here I am teaching all of you. So let's put it all together. I created and launched a life after journalism so I could have the freedom to work on behalf of issues that I care about, integrate my family and my whole self into the work I'm doing, be able to pursue opportunities and expand my skills on the timetable that I want, and make an impact beyond the newsroom by doing my part to help people and organizations tell stories that matter to them. My launch date is January 1st, 2019. Now, you might be saying, Theola, this is kind of long, this is kind of wordy, all valid points. But we're not going for perfection here. We are going for getting out on paper what's most important to you. And if it helps to have 3 or 4 benefits, put them down there. But the goal is that you're very clear on what are your top priorities and by when you want to do them. So I can. Now, when setting your goal, I tend to see 2 extremes when I work with journalists on this, journalists who are doing career change. The first is a blank slate. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. Now, the reason why I can say this with such confidence is because I was the total blank slate person. I just kept saying, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know. So this is very common, but of course not helpful, because if you don't know, how can you set a goal, right? The other extreme I see is the know-it-all. I can do anything. I'm a journalist. I have the best skills ever. I can become a brain surgeon. I have so much confidence. I know I can just walk into any job. Another extreme position, right? So when setting your goal, you want to be in the middle. You want to be in between being that total blank slate, like, I have no idea, and then being the, I know it all. This will be a walk in the park. You want to be somewhere in the middle and striking that balance. So here's the secret sauce. This is what I've been waiting to tell you, is that you already know what your goal is. No, for real. Like, even if you say you don't know, even if you say I can do anything, I have so many options, you actually know what your goal is. Now, why is that? Because the goal is there. It's just something that you may be overlooking, or you may be so busy neglecting realizing what it is because you're busy taking care of a relative, or you're just so used to being that journalist who is focused on other people. So that's why it's hidden from you right now, and then you just can't quite kind of put your finger on it. And then there's always fear, good old-fashioned fear, where there's that concept that you are, the fear is not that you are inadequate, but that you are more powerful than you realize. I think that's Maya Angelou, I'm not sure, but it's definitely a quote that's out there. And sometimes you're just afraid to actually admit what's the most important thing to you, because by admitting it, maybe there's this pressure. You feel like, okay, now I have to do something about it because I've said this is what's important to me. But there is a way to discover this in a way that feels safe and empowering and not frightening. And that is going back to our first lesson, the L of the LEAD method, the listen and the language. This is how you are going to discover your life after journalism launch goal. You are going to listen and language. What do I mean by that? You're going to listen, you are going to listen to yourself and hear you tell yourself what your goal is. And then you're going to language, you're going to find the words to write that down. And we have an exercise for you to do that. Because first, again, we are teaching you the concepts, then you're going to take action with an exercise. Now, what kinds of things are you going to ask yourself when you're trying to listen in language? Questions like, what's most important to you? Or what would you do for free? Or what's something that people always ask you about? You know, it's totally common to just not sit around and say, what would I do for free? But it's this kind of, exercise where you're setting aside the time to actually listen to yourself. That's how you can find the answers. So it's going to be really exciting to actually work on your goals. And I can't wait to see what they are, because you are going to realize, this has been here all along. And now I finally have unearthed what this is. So this is what you learned in this lesson. You learned that the number one culture gap that you face when making a transition from journalism is that you are going from being an observer to being a player. And you want to be taking action because action creates momentum. And guess what? You already know what your goal is. And what you want to do is strike a balance when you're setting that goal, because you don't want to be super confident and you don't want to be super insecure either. And how you're going to set that goal is that you're going to use the listen and the language, the L of the lead method, to ask yourself what's most important to you and use the words to write it down. So now it's exercise time. You are going to set your goal. You are going to work to be in the middle and strike that balance between blank slate and know-it-all. So in this module, there is an exercise, a worksheet for you to complete to help you set that goal. So dive in, and I look forward to reading your goals in the Facebook group.